All right. Good evening, everybody. It's Mayor O'Brien. I just wanted to say hello and kind of kick us off on our West Second Avenue drainage and roadway improvement project. This is going to be our pre-construction meeting. This is a project that was initially begun in 2021. It's been a long time coming. I know a lot of you have already had significant input into the project itself, but we've got a great opportunity to hear more about the kickoff, as well as get any questions answered that you have this evening by town staff. We've got the town manager here. We have Public Works with Tanya Elliott Moore. We have Mike Galora and also John Fitzgibbon, along with council persons Tom Stroop and Brandy Haynes. So with that, we'll get started. I'm going to throw it over to Tanya Elliott Moore, who'll start working us through the slide deck on this project.
Evening, everyone. Welcome to our pre-construction meeting for the residents living along West 2nd Avenue. I know that many of you are anticipating this project and excited about the new paving that'll take place with the Stormwater project. But what we wanted to go through this evening, since it has been since 2021, is kind of go through the segments of the project and what's happening, what's being installed. And most importantly, we have our contractor here with Cathcart, our project manager, Mr. Ryan Whitmer is here this evening. So we'll go through how residents may be impacted as we go through this process. So with that, I'm going to move the slides along, and I am going to provide you with an overview of the project and the meeting purpose. So this evening, we're providing an overview of the stormwater and roadway improvements. We're explaining how the improvements will impact residents. We're discussing the drainage solutions and runoff conveyance, and then we're answering any questions that residents may have. So as the mayor said, this was a project that started in 2021, and the West 2nd Avenue Roadway and Drainage Improvement Project is focused on enhancing stormwater management along the roadway by adding new drainage structures, improving runoff capture, directing stormwater to proper outfall locations. In addition to that, we're repaving West 2nd Avenue and also adding water lines as part of this project. So as we move forward, I'm going to welcome Mr. John Fitzgibbon, and he's going to explain a few parts and pieces of the process that may have begun already. So John, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you, Tanya. Yeah, just wanted to give you guys kind of a heads up on what we're doing on the overall project. As you know, I've met with many of the residents throughout this process, coming all the way from the cul-de-sac all the way out to our main street. What Tanya's slide here is kind of our project laydown yard. We've used this in the past when we were actually doing construction on Pine Street. It's centrally located to the project, so this will be the laydown yard for delivery of materials. One of the things that we want to make sure is that, you know, because it is a tight space, that we have to have the materials readily available within context to the overall project. So this will be our area where we'll take deliveries and then distribute the materials for the day to the specific area of the project. This is in Palmer Park. Depending on throughout the process, we may end up having to expand that a little bit, but we'll make that determination as we continue on and as we look at deliveries and how they materials are coming to the project. You want to go to the next slide, Tanya?
Hey, John, on this one, you have to cover the surveying and the water lines, and then we get into
on the same slide. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I thought that on slide 4, it kind of shows the overall project. That may be a better place to talk about that conversation. Yeah, that one. So as you've seen, right now, the project is all the way from the cul-de-sac to Main Street, and you'll see that on the following slide as well. It includes stormwater and capture and conveyance. It includes new drainage structures, roadway grading and curb improvements, as well as water main improvements along the entire path of the project. One thing that you may have seen over the period of the last week is stakes have started to be set. Those stakes that have been placed in the ground are really just defining the right of way versus property lines. So as we set those stakes, if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Those are the delineation of the town's right of way. So not necessarily meaning the extent of the impact to your yard, but yet just defining where the property line is associated with the right of way. In addition to that, as you look deeper into the plans, you may see where we have put meter boxes for each one of the water connections to your home. We've had previous conversation with both the contractor and the Orange County Utility Company. We had to show specific locations just to make sure that we had those located on the plans for cost purposes. But Orange County and the contractor have said as we go and we begin to drop those water connection points, that we will coordinate with each one of you and the homeowners and we'll stake it to make sure that it's in the best location for you for making future water connections. For example, if we're on the left side of your yard where our water connection is currently shown, but yet your water connection is actually on the opposite side, we can make those adjustments within the field. We have the cost already included to bring them. At that point in time, it will just be us coordinating with Orange County Utilities and our contractor to ensure that we are putting your meter box in a location that's most convenient to the residents. And at that point, I think what I'd like to do, Tanya, is turn it over to Mike Galora, and he can go through the following next slides, unless
Yes, John, that's correct. It's Mike
Okay,
Galora
perfect.
now.
Yep.
Thank you, John. The project is, the drainage for the project will be kind of split up into several segments. And we've kind of done this in this presentation to give you an idea of how the drainage will be constructed by Cathcart. The first segment we're going to start with is going to be at the cul-de-sac, which will be probably the most challenging because of the tight quarters that the contractor will be working in. This section of West Second Avenue probably experienced some of the worst flooding because of the fact that it was so low and that the roadway profile didn't allow for the water to drain, and there were some drainage in there, but it was not effective and it was undersized. So what we've done is we've put in a French drain system that will adequately collect any runoff within the cul-de-sac and then allow the water to evacuate vertically into aquifer. This section of improvements will go all the way to where the town has already completed drainage improvements. You can go to the next slide, Sonia. This section of West Second Avenue will not have any new drainage improvements done to it because it was already done as part of a separate project previously done by the town. What we will be doing here is we will be milling and resurfacing the roadway in order to extend its life expectancy, in addition to constructing the water main replacement along West Second Avenue. Next slide, please. This section of roadway is where we will be adding some new French drains. This area of West Second Avenue has some low points in it where water collects and doesn't drain anywhere. So we'll be collecting them in a French drain system that will improve the drainage in this area and prevent water from collecting and pooling in the roadway itself. So you should see a marked improvement for this section of a road. Again, this area will be drained with French drains, and the water will be evacuated into the superficial aquifer. This next section of road is also a section that the town had done previous drainage improvements on. We've actually constructed a dedicated outfall to Lake Butler to the south. The one thing we will be doing is we will be enhancing the ability of the roadway to collect water that may be standing in it and take it to the same system. We will not be increasing the volume of water that goes into the system, but we will be improving the ability of the system to collect it and prevent water from pooling on the surface. The section from 515 West 2nd Avenue to 329 West 2nd Avenue is also another part of West 2nd Avenue that the town had done previous work on. This area was done to improve the drainage at the intersection of Pine Street and West 2nd Avenue, where the water is directed into a dedicated storm scepter system and eventually into some swales within Palmer Park. So this system has already been in place, and we will also be milling and resurfacing this section of roadway to extend the life expectancy of the pavement. Next slide, please. The final section will be probably the most complex of all because it extends from essentially Pine Street all the way to Main Street. And we will be constructing a dedicated drainage system along West 2nd Avenue to collect water that currently spreads and goes into adjacent properties. It's not contained, it's not confined. So we'll be collecting that water and connecting it into the First Avenue and Forest drainage system. The First Avenue and Forest drainage system was already sized to accept water from the future improvements along West 2nd Avenue. So nothing has changed as far as the volume of water that will be being directed to that existing system. That system was previously constructed by the town and permitted by the South Florida Water Management District and is currently in operation. Just an overall drainage summary. This project will provide improved drainage efficiency for all segments, improved pavement conditions for all segments. And that's important because West 2nd Avenue is really a dead-end street, and we want to make sure that road is in good enough condition to allow residents to evacuate if needed during a extreme event like a hurricane. So we want to make sure the roadway is in a good enough condition so that you have the ability to evacuate to Main Street. The water will be captured by dedicated inlets. It'll be directed into the surficial aquifer or directed to Wasion Bay and Lake Butler through existing outfall systems. The enhanced stormwater management will be upgraded through these inlets and pipes and will provide additional water quality prior to discharging the water into the receiving water bodies. And again, the key intersections here are the intersections at Pine, Palm, Butler, and 4th Street. And these are where some of the major collection points are because of the way the road was built and the way the topography in the area was previously established. And with that, I'll turn the slides over to Tanya.
Thank you, Mike. I have a quick question. Don't mean to put you on the spot, but as you know, these screenshots I pulled were from your final plan set for West 2nd Avenue. And there was a question about these red and green dotted lines. Could you explain what those are briefly?
Yes. The red dotted lines represent the limits of the contributing drainage area to each one of those specific inlets. So let's say at 401, S401, you see a little triangular piece there. That's the expected drainage area that goes into that particular inlet. The green line is just the overall basin boundary of the watershed. So that is the overall boundary that drains into this part of the drainage system.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. So with that, I am going to welcome Ryan Whitmer from Cathcart Construction. He's the project manager for this project, and we're going to go through how his phasing will work and how they will proceed forward with the construction work, because I know that will be something that's important to the residents. So with that, Ryan, I'm going to turn this over to you for the construction process, starting with phase 1.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody. So yeah, starting on phase 1, which would be the cul-de-sac area you see at the very end highlighted. Like Mr. Galore said earlier, that's a very confined area, as you all know. So that's going to be one of our main focus points. We plan on doing the French drain and the water main concurrently. Doing it that way obviously will add a little bit of time to the job, but that's the way we can ensure that residents will maintain access throughout the entire project. There is 12 structures running through there. So our game plan is to go from structure to structure, like I said, with French drain and water main concurrently. Once we get past that red line there, we'll drop back, fully restore that entire area, including services, sod, restoration, before we continue to the next area. Like Miss Tanya said, or I'm sorry, Mr. John said, we will reach out to each resident individually. We'll put a stake where the service is shown to go, talk to you guys, discuss it with you. If we need to move it, we will get with Orange County, make sure they're aware of it before we move it, and we'll keep you updated on the entire process. Phase 2 is what you see here in the red. This is going to consist of water, storm, and roadway improvements. Our game plan with this is going to be the same thing. We plan on having 2 crews with this. First crew starting on the storm, let them get a good head start. We'll have the second crew coming behind with the water. By the time the storm is done, that crew will then drop back and start the restoration process while the water crew finishes. Then the water crew will jump back and do the same thing, help with the restoration, reach out to all the residents about the service locations. Again, this phase will have full restoration before we start the next phase. The final phase, which is phase 3 here, this one is more broke up by blocks. There is drainage and water utility work on each block. This will be kind of the same thing. We plan on attacking this with multiple crews, have them come in. I don't believe, and Mr. Galore might know better, I don't believe there's any services for houses on these areas that we'll be changing. So there won't be as much coordination with the residents as far as the location of their services. But this phase right here will be the final phase where we tie everything together, and as well as the other ones, make sure full restoration. Once that is done, we will be able to come back, make sure the entire job is paved out, and leave it looking pristine.
So Ryan, the question that I have for the residents, because I know it'll be very important to them. I know you want to try to potentially work on phase 3 concurrently with phase 1. So given that phase 1 is kind of where you wanted to start, what's your time frame for actually what I call putting shovel to ground on phase 1? So residents kind of get an idea of when will we be turning shovels and what type of duration are we looking at?
Yes, ma'am. So we plan on having structures on the job site the very last day of March. That's when they're going to be showing up. So the following week, which would be the 7th, April 7th, we plan on starting on that cul-de-sac area. Being that we have the storm and the water to contend with, as well as making sure residents maintain access throughout the duration, that portion of the project will take plus or minus 100 days.
Okay.
From start to finish.
Okay, thank you. And then phase 2?
Phase 2 would be 150 days, start to finish, minus the final pavement.
All right, thank you. So I wanted you also, Ryan, to kind of cover access during the project, because I know residents, especially those towards the end of the cul-de-sac where they have one way in and out, are probably concerned about how you will maintain access to their driveways, their properties, etc. while we go through this. If you could go through that, that'd be great.
Yes, ma'am. So as you see on the far right of the screen, where that blue area is, that is where we're planning on putting a stabilized drivable surface. It'll be a crushed concrete road base, so it won't damage any of your vehicles. It'll be almost like an asphalt roadway. We plan on putting that there because, as you can see, the storm goes in the center of the roadway, so we have to extend that over. So there are going to be, in that right of way, there's going to be some brick pavers and stuff be removed, and we'll stage those in our laydown yard, make sure they're wrapped up nice and neat, and we'll put them right back when we're done. And that would be essentially your driveway, your access point while we do that work in that area. The reason it shifts over, as you can see on the left side, is that house right there has a very nice fence, a lot of planters, and we don't want to disrupt that. And there's more room on the other side of the road. So while we're doing this, obviously this is the pipe that's in the center of the road. It's going to have the least amount of access. as far as roadway available. So we plan on building a nice stabilized trail all the way around it. So you will maintain access throughout the entire duration.
Great, thank you, Ryan. So with that, we've come to the end of our presentation relative to the project. So if residents would please put your hands up if you have any questions.
Joel, you have your hand up. What is your question, please?
Yes, if we could step back to where you had the temporary access road.
That'll be the last slide.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes, sir.
How far does that go?
From the edge of the road?
No, what street number does it start at?
Let me pull up Google. That would be right around address 939.
And is this the only place you're going to have this kind of temporary access?
Yes, sir. Unless we get to an area where there's not enough roadway for cars to travel safely down, we'll extend it if we need to down the road further.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Joel. One thing I did want to reiterate is since 2021, the design has not changed. We've been working with the same design that we went over with you and pretty much did a bunch of site visits with the residents. The delay in the project was getting the funding from the state. So that's why it took so long. And then once we did get the bids out there, it was more than what was anticipated 3 years prior to when we had the approval for the project. So we had to rebid it out there, not rebid it, but resubmit to the state to get answers to get the final approval. So that's why it took so long. All right, we have iPhone that has a question.
Hi, Robert. It's Voorhees.
Hey, Court.
Hey. Thank you guys for explaining. And it's so hard to tell on these drawings, but there's meters like where that at the very end on the side there's meters, the existing water meters, there's backflow meters, and also our right there. So we're just trying. I don't know if the field level is when we decide all that type thing.
Did you get that, Ryan or
No,
Tanya?
I'm sorry. It was
breaking up a little.
Major echoing. I couldn't hear what you were saying.
I
Or
think
can
he
you
was,
put it-
Ryan, I think he was noting that there are meters and other things at the end of this roadway that they're concerned about as you're doing construction. Making
Oh,
sure those
okay.
get protected.
Yes, absolutely. They will be protected. If it's something that's remotely close to the work area, we can put 2x4s around it and fence it off to make sure that it doesn't get damaged.
Hey, guys, can I interrupt for 1 second? I think that maybe there's one or more computer on in the same place, maybe at Public Works. Somebody's next to each other with. It's very difficult to hear anything.
Yeah, I think maybe if everyone who's not speaking would mute, that would help.
Yeah, that would.
Court, did it answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
I'd also like
Yes,
to add that Orange County Utilities will have the inspectors out there as well to make sure that you have full access, your water facilities during construction.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. We do have a question in the chat from Jim Atchison. Who will coordinate any natural gas, Wi-Fi, AT&T relocations?
The team internally had a meeting with all of our utility service providers. So Orange County Utilities was there, Spectrum, Apopka Gas, and Duke Energy.
If there's going to be any disruptions, we'll let you guys know. We'll advertise it, but it should be minimal. This one comes from Scott Kirby. During the initial discussions, we were told that mailboxes may need to be relocated. How much lead time will we have?
So for the mailboxes, if they need to be relocated, we can move them and put them somewhere that would be out of the work area, but you would still be able to access and receive your mail. We wouldn't be, they would still be put in place. They just might have to be moved 5 feet one way or the other, but we can handle that.
Okay, I guess I'm the reason that it's echoing. So Tanya, if you can handle the questions.
Yes, sir. Joel, I see that your hand is still up, but I'm assuming that you are good with your questions.
No, I actually have a second one, and it's more curiosity than anything else.
Okay.
On behalf of those who lived through the 4 storms of 2004, how do you think hurricane season is going to impact this project?
Mike, do you want to handle that?
Your guess is as good as ours, but we know this area. We've gone through several hurricanes, and this project is actually being funded through Hurricane Irma, which occurred in 2017. And so we were able to essentially survive that hurricane. But obviously, I know you have concerns, but we will do our best to try to make sure the system that's currently in place is fully functional, and that if we have to make sure the drains are clear, we will make sure that it is done. Make sure that there's no trash in the streets that may block drainage that's trying to get to the inlets. All of that will be done. So we will do some pre-storm prep if we know that there's a hurricane approaching.
I appreciate that. My concern comes more from an experience I had this past year with Helene. We had just done a little project on our place in North Carolina on the driveway. 5 hours later, Helene came through and ripped it apart. And so my thought was, the concern I had was when you have things torn up in the middle of the road, hurricanes have a way of just washing things out.
Brian, do you have anything to add as far as any protective efforts, maybe using steel pieces to cover your trench openings and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we will make sure to have all those at every inlet to help with all those, the washouts and the storm related floodings. Also, that French drain that we're putting in from the cul-de-sac area there, that's going to help, in my opinion, a lot with the standing water. That's a very useful system that we're putting in there. And I've seen a lot of great results on a lot of projects using it.
Very well, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Reams, you have your hand up?
Yes. Can you hear me? Am I unmuted?
Yes, we can hear you.
Did you say on phase 1, which is the cul-de-sac, that starts April 7th, and you would estimate that phase would take 100 days? That's 3 months, correct?
Yes,
Phase
ma'am.
1. Not what I see on the screen, but the cul-de-sac.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to go. You can just let this die. No, you don't need to.
Okay, I do not see any more hands raised at this time. So do any members of council have any questions? Mayor, do you have any questions?
You have another question in the chat box.
You can contact Public Works at the town if you have any questions or concerns.
So I just have a quick question. Does all of the water from the project go to the east or not? That's my only question. And if not, where does it switch?
The only water that goes east, if you're talking about the First Avenue and Fourth Street drainage
Yes.
system, is just to the east of Pine Street. Between Pine Street
So,
and
phase
Pine
3?
Street and Palm. Yeah, Pine Street and Palm. So that only that piece will be directed towards the First Avenue and Fourth Street drainage improvements.
Is that phase 3 on these
Yes.
drawings that you guys are showing?
Yes, it is in the phase 3 construction.
And is there any sort of other outfalls or retention swales, bioretention swales, anything like that in the phase 1 and 2 section?
There is none existing. In the phase 2, there is a dedicated outfall that drains into Wasion Bay, but we are not doing any construction improvements in that area. It's only going to be milling and resurfacing and water main improvements. So the drainage has already been taken care of for that piece. There's another piece just to the west of Pine Street where we have a dedicated outfall in front of Mr. Kirby's home that goes directly into Lake Butler. But it is a very small watershed in relation to the rest of the project. The other area that has improvements already in place is the intersection of Pine Street and Second Avenue, where we have a dedicated drainage system that drains to Palmer Park, into some swales in Palmer Park, and eventually discharges to Lake Butler.
Okay, so my last question then would be in Palmer Park. Yesterday, I actually saw some chain link put up. And based on your first slide in the presentation, am I understanding that that's going to be, that area inside the chain link fence is going to be like a staging area?
It's what we call a laydown yard in construction, Brandy. Any construction project needs a laydown yard in which we put any materials and supplies that need to be taken out and installed as part of the project. So that's the laydown yard.
Okay, so I guess my question then would be when we start getting into the rainy season, what happens with all that stuff that's going to be underwater? Because I know, like, even back at Halloween, there were all kinds of cars stuck in there, and it's been wet most of the season, even since we hit our dry season.
John, I think you are still on the line. I
Yeah,
believe
hey,
we used this
Brandy,
area for a laydown
Yeah,
yard
it
before.
won't affect that. And we've actually had that conversation with Ryan. Because we're gonna put down gravel and we'll cover and we put fence up, so it will still drain the way that it's gonna normally drain. All we're talking about is having precast pipe and structures sitting in there. If they get wet, they get wet. We'll come in. So it's not that big of an issue for us. It just seemed like the best place for us to make sure that we can ensure we had a place that wasn't taking up park space, but yet at the same time providing us for laydown for concrete structures. In addition to that, we've also looked at the area on the other side of the trees, which is over more near the cypress tree park kind of thing, that if we do have to have overflow, that they would, put up some additional fencing if we needed some more staging area. But right now, what we're trying to do is coordinate with Ryan to make sure that we're only bringing in enough material for the moments that we need it. So we're not that worried about it, but we will protect, that from a outfall perspective to make sure we're not impeding any of the stormwater capacity, if that makes sense. And we've used that laydown area many, many times for all the projects we did on Pine Street and a lot of other projects, and it just makes for the most sense so that we're not impeding Parks and Rec.
Okay. I may have more questions on that later, but that's good for now.
And then we do have a question in the chat, John. Will the width of Second Avenue be increased beyond the cul-de-sac area? John and Mike.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand that question. What was it?
They're asking if the width of Second Avenue, will it be increased beyond the cul-de-sac area?
Well, the width of the pavement, and I'll let Mike respond to that, but we are providing curbs and gutters. And so there is, some semblance of widening of the road from the standpoint of controlling the water. But when you get to the area that's already done, that stays in place, which is by the Alley Goods and the McCarthy home. So that width stays the same. And then beyond that, it adjusts a little bit just to provide proper vehicle passing, but mostly through curbs, not necessarily through changing the width of the asphalt.
Yeah, the pavement width is undulating. And so what we've provided is a consistent width for the entire section of West Second Avenue. So it will provide very much a traversable path for the vehicles. And we also have, like John said, we'll be putting down ribbon curb, which is traversable, so that like landscape vehicles can pull off the road and park and do their work as needed, and it will not obstruct traffic. So, but the intent was to make sure that that roadway is sufficiently wide enough in the event that people from Pine Avenue west to the cul-de-sac have the ability to evacuate the main street if there is such a need.
Great, thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thank you. That was our question, and you answered it, so thanks very much. It sounds like it's going to increase somewhat, to be determined, and that there will be areas for trucks to pull off to allow traffic to drive through.
That's correct.
To be determined.
Okay, so it sounds like everyone's questions have been answered. If there's anything else, please raise your hand. Okay, with that, I will turn it back over to the town manager to conclude.
Thank you. I don't know if I'm still having an echo. Am I?
No, you're okay. No, you're okay.
Okay, thank you. No, I appreciate everybody's time tonight. I know it's been a project that's been in the works for quite some time. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your participation. We'll try to make this as seamless as possible, and we'll make sure that we meet with you to go over any of your concerns. We do have a second meeting. It's on Friday night at 6 p.m., but we'll be adding another meeting for those that can't make that meeting at another time to be determined. So we want to make sure that we get all the information out to everybody. This is being taped, so we'll put it on our YouTube channel so you can share it with your friends and family that live along this corridor.
And Robert, we did get another really quick question in the chat about paving. Yes, West Second Avenue paving is part of this project. All right, I would also like to thank everybody for their participation, and have a great evening.